Good morning, Jackie. Just want to make sure everything's working. A lot of problems with tech again. My Stream Deck is completely not working, but I think I bypassed it. Just means that we don't have a secondary camera again. Making sure we're still live on Facebook. Looks like we are. We'll start with the intro right now and get started with our services. Good morning, Reverend Robert Ugandoshin Yamada here, and welcome to the Animal Liberation Temple, Dobotu Kyoji, where we are at the service of the spiritual and physical liberation of our dear animal friends. We like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the ancestral and seeds land of the Yokuts, Karkin, Confederate villages of the Lisha, Ohlone, Miwok, and Miwok-Ma people. We recognize them, the legacy of violence, settlement, and displacement of these people who suffered and survived. Say good morning to Jackie again, and good morning to Neil and Tani. Thank you so much for joining our live stream. I've been gone for a week, and I am back at the temple. Before we begin, I'd like to dedicate today's services to two individual groups. One is our dear rat friends in DC. My good friend Beck was in DC last week and was setting up a project for our rat friends to help them survive and coexist with humans in DC. And this is a large scientific program that she's been working on. And while there, she witnessed many rats being poisoned and dying, and just a horrific sight. And maybe so many rats that she couldn't give the time to each individual rat. And so today we'd like to dedicate our services to our dear rat friends who had passed away in DC and continue to pass away in DC until we can develop programs that have us coexist with our dear rat friends. And this is a problem all over the world, but specifically I'd like to recognize our dear rat friends in DC this week. Secondarily, I'd like to recognize the beagles still in Ridgeland. Approximately 2,000 beagles still in Ridgeland. If anybody's following, the rescue efforts on April 18th was unsuccessful. And we'll talk more about that, but I'd like to dedicate today's services to the Ridgeland Beagles and our dear rat friends of DC. Good morning, Gabriella. So good to see you. Thank you for joining in live. And good morning, Martin. Thank you for joining in live. Some temple updates. My stream deck that I use to toggle between cameras and make sure everything is working and my intro and all that is stopped working completely. It just was flickering on and off this morning. I couldn't get it to stay on, so I quickly did some rewiring, and everything's just being run through the laptop right now. Therefore, I can't switch cameras, and I can't even have all the cameras plugged in. Luckily, I was able to get the main camera and my microphone still set up using the existing USB ports, but I'm going to have to replace this Stream Deck, which is not great because it's a really good device that is not working at all. I'm going to hope that they'll return it, but we'll see how that works out. Probably from the rain is what I'm guessing. We had rain this last week. I'd like to acknowledge April, who was here while I was away in Wisconsin. April was able to take care of all the animals here. She survived a 2-day rainstorm and took care of a lot of the animals here, and I'm grateful. I'm very grateful to April's work here at the temple, so that I could be in Wisconsin helping the efforts there. It was a horrible place to see if anybody tuned into my very short live stream while I was in Wisconsin. It was a very difficult situation, and I'm still digesting everything that happened there. But if you'd like to know more or have specific questions for me about Ridgeland, please leave them in the chat. I'm happy to answer those questions. I'm very open about being there and being a part of those efforts, bearing witness, and attempting to rescue beagles from the research facility, animal testing facility in Madison, Wisconsin. More temple updates. It's very cloudy, so I've been having to run the generator a lot, which is more gas costs. We still don't have a proper roof on the temple, so therefore maybe why some of my electronics are failing. We are still fundraising for things like the truck, and hoping to have our funding continue, or our grants continue. We're reapplying for our grant this year, so hopefully we'll get that. Our food intake has greatly increased here, as I'll talk about during our resident update. So moving on to a resident update, got everybody fed this morning. Woke up really early. This is kind of the only way to get it done with the number of residents we have here and a lot of special care residents. But our duck friends, Breve, Grave, Amanda, and Renee, are all doing really well. And then there's 2 foster ducks with them as well. They're both Peking ducks that are fosters, but have been fosters for almost a year now. So maybe they'll become residents, and maybe receive new names as residents of the Animal Liberation Temple. Our dogs, Lucy and Bernard, are doing phenomenally well. I'm really happy to, report that. Our goats down the hill, Rob, Matt, and Phil, are doing really well. Our tortoise, Miyachi, is doing really well, still eating a lot. Reminds me I need to still feed Miyachi, but it's been really cloudy and cold, so he doesn't want to come out. But we're still going to get him some food today, make sure he's doing well. Priya and Harriet are doing really well. And then we have our Cornishes, Jax, Jimmy, and Edward, the Cornish roosters, and then all of our Cornish hens, Poppy, Aster, Ivy, Azalea, Peony, Cynthia, Lotus, Magnolia, Sage, Marigold, Camilla, Hydrangea, Holly, and Zinnia. All doing really well, and actually laying a lot of eggs. That happens in the springtime. They're laying a lot of eggs, and all of our eggs get donated back to... specifically for our Cornishes, they can't eat a lot of their eggs. The number of eggs that they lay, they can't eat them back. Many times we do feed the eggs back to the hens, and when we can't, we donate those eggs to a wildlife rescuer, where opossums that are maybe rescued from a mother who had passed away and are growing up, and they need to be able to eat things like eggs, because that's something that they might find in their wild habitat, and is also very calorie dense for what they need. So we donate our eggs to an opossum rescue. Our other red hens, Glennis, Gwen, Alice, Rebel, and Mariah, are all doing really well. Rebel and Mariah are now out with the other hens. They're still adjusting. Rebel is not adjusting as well as Mariah, and Mariah is still having a lot of difficulty adjusting with the other 3 hens. But that's just going to take some time. There's always a pecking order that needs to happen amongst the hens, and so we're just being patient with them, making sure that they still get the proper amount of food every day. And so we're kind of feeding them separately, but they are interacting together. That will just take some time. Then we have our rooster friends, Sabrina, May, Hard One, Elton, Magnus, George, Brad, and Kudu, all doing really well. Our guinea fowl friend Wendy is doing really well. our mourning dove inside the house, Sequoia. I don't know if you can hear her, but I can hear her. She's doing great. Hasu the rat getting really up there in age, but he's doing really well. And then we have all of our pigeon friends: FP, Champagne, Tulin, Sasha, Yo-Yo, Petey, Ricky, Spreckle, Spencer, Shambles, Beluga, Beth, Pee-wee, Cascade, Augustus, Rufus, Harper, Elliot, Snickers, Boba, Kismet, Farrah, Angus, Pandora, Joan, Sin, Lago, Fred, Chamanto, Halo, Vin, Capone, Percy, Pacino, Lacey, Sasha II, Dora, and Endora, all doing really well. And then we have our foster duck, the Indian runner, who's doing really well. He's out and about running around, and they're doing really well. Just checking the chat. So, we haven't had a sanctuary tour in a while, and I'm not sure when we're going to be able to do that again. One is we have several equipment failures. My stream deck that allows me to have the secondary camera has failed. My battery for my secondary camera has failed. Both of those things can be replaced, and I should be back up and running on my secondary camera soon. However, one of the things that not all folks know about the Animal Liberation Temple, and this might be a good time to bring this up, is that often we are tasked, because we are an off-grid sanctuary, we're kind of private, difficult to get to. We have a ton of cameras on our site. I have a very high risk tolerance, and therefore we often take in high risk animals. And when I take in high risk animals, I can't always share with everybody out there who they are, where they came from, or even show them on video at all. And currently we are housing multiple residents, or multiple fosters, really, and maybe some residents as well, who will have their permanent home here, some who are waiting to move on to their next home. A lot of times we are responsible for doing quarantine because we have a medical building, and we're trying to expand to build more quarantine areas, as this temple has a special function of being able to take in rescue animals who are at high risk and be able to take care of them, provide the quarantine so that they can move on to their next sanctuary and have their forever homes there. So that's one of the functions that we have here at the Animal Liberation Temple because of our high risk tolerance. But that also means I can't always share every resident with you that I would like to share. There are some future residents I will be able to share in the future. However, right now I'm unable to do that. So if you folks are wondering, why we haven't been able to do a sanctuary tour in a little while, alternatively, you can reach out to me individually on Signal if you had that, and I can talk more about some of our residents. It's just not something I want to do on live stream. And this also makes fundraising very difficult, because I can't share all the wonderful and beautiful stories of the residents here and some of our fosters here. So that makes fundraising very difficult. But if you do have the ability to donate to the Animal Liberation Temple, it is extremely helpful, and often goes to these residents who I can't talk about, but still need the proper veterinarian care, need the proper food and shelter, and just all the love that they can possibly get. A lot of times this is their first landing place after being rescued, so they need a lot of care. So we are just constantly working on that. My days are full. They're probably 12 or 15-hour days, just taking care of all the residents here, often without much help, and that can be very difficult. But I do still want to acknowledge we still do get some volunteers. Yesterday Conrad came by. I'm really grateful to Conrad, who comes by and helps out, volunteering some of his time. Michelle had came earlier last week. And then, of course, April was here for a whole solid week before going back to Arizona, just taking care of the animals 24/7. So I'm really grateful for them being able to do that. So we'll move on with our services here. Forgive me as I am still trying to make this work without, just using my laptop and not my Stream Deck. Stream Deck makes things a lot easier to navigate around, and I don't have the Stream Deck working right now. But we'll now recite our prayers, sutras, and vows to our dear animal friends. These prayers are of great auspicious benefit to all who hear these prayers. And we ask if you have companion animals nearby or in a place where our wild animal friends can hear these prayers intended for them, even our dear insect friends. We'll start with the recitation of the Heart Sutra. That can be found on page 4 of the Animal Liberation Temple Prayer Book. Maka hanya haramita shenyo kanji zai bosatsu gyojin hanya haramita jiso kengo onkai kodo ihai kuyaku shadishi shiki fuku kufui shiki shiki zoku ze kuku zoku ze shiki ju so gyo shiki yaku bunyo ze shari shi ze shoho kuso fusho fumetsu fuku fujo fuzo fugen ze koku tru mu shiki muju so gyo shiki mugen shoko mi sokuho mugen kai nai shi mui shiki kai mu myo yoku mu myo den nai shi mu ro shi yaku mu ro shi jin mu ku shu metsu do mu chi yaku mu tokui mu sho tokko bodai satta hanya haramita koshin mukege mukege komu kufunri sai tendo muso kugyo nehan sanze sho utsue hanya haramita kotoku wa nokutara sanyaku sanbodai kochi hanya haramita zedai shinshu zedai myoshu ze mujo shu ze muto do shu no jo isai kushin jetsu fu koko zetsu hanya haramita shu zoku zetsu shu watu gyate gyate hara gyate hara so gyate oji sowaka hanya shingyo neguwaku wa kono kudoko mote amaneku isai ni oyoboshi warera toshija tomina tomano butsudo. Our dear rat friends of DC. The Beagles of Ridgeland, no. Animal liberation, no. Josen Koto, Jiho Senshi, Fushi Son Busa, Fushi Son Busa, Moko Sa Moko Hoja Horo Mi. I will now recite the Refuge Prayer in Tibetan and English, page 8 of the Animal Liberation Temple Prayer Book. Sangye chodan toki chonam la janju paduk teknik yapsu taki jinso kipe sonam ki drola pendra sangye juparsho. The Buddha, Dharma, and excellent assembly of the Sangha. Until I attain enlightenment in these I take refuge. By my practice of the 6 perfections may all sentient beings attain the state of Buddhahood. We now recite the 4 great Bodhisattva vows, Shigi Seigan, page 9. Shujo Muhen Segando Bono Mujin Segandan Omon Muryo Seganga Otada Mujo Seganjo. However numerous sentient beings, I vow to enlighten them all. However inexhaustible my delusions, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the dharmas, I vow to master them all. However endless the enlightened way, I vow to follow it fully. We now recite the 6 vows to our dear animal friends. However numerous my dear animal friends, I vow to liberate them all. However diverse the methods of animal liberation, I vow to support them all. However unheard their voices, I vow to speak out for them all. However painful and inexhaustible the method of suffering, I vow to bear witness to them all. However infinite the cages and tanks, I vow to empty them all. However difficult animal liberation, I vow to achieve it completely. And we now recite the 100-syllable Vajrasattva purification mantra. Om Vajrasattva Maya Nupalaya Vajrasattva Te No Pachisajito Me Bhava Sito Sho Me Bhava Sipo Sho Me Bhava Anorato Me Bhava Sava Sita Me Prayata Sava Karma Sita Me Chicham Chi Yam Kuru Hom Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sava Tata Gata Vajra Mame Mucha Vajri Bhava Mahasamamya Safaha. I think it's very important that I try my best every week to have our Sunday services for the wonderful folks who tune in live and may watch it throughout the week. I think developing a spiritual practice that is intended for our non-human animal friends is extremely important in our movement, and that we continue to recognize the spiritual nature, the enlightened nature, the deservingness of our non-human animal friends. And so I try to have these every week. If I miss, it's because of extraordinary circumstances. But it's always my intention to have these every week so folks can come here and reconnect spiritually with our non-human animal friends, and that we have a steady service for our non-human animal friends, showing the seriousness that they deserve. Equally important is the different types of actions that folks are taking around the world for our dear animal friends. Even though the Ridgeland seems to be dominating the social media right now, I do see folks around the world continuing their efforts for animals that are stuck in fur trade, our dear rat friends who are being exposed to terrible poisons. I still see folks doing work to change the legislation. I still see folks out there rescuing individual animals. And I'm so very grateful that these types of actions continue to happen. And while they happen, we want to have a regular spiritual practice to come back for our non-human animal friends, and that's what we hope to provide here Sunday. I'd like to encourage everyone to try to dedicate some daily practice to this, even if it's just a simple meditation dedicated to our dear animal friends. This is something simple we can all do. I think it's helpful to bring our mind back to a place of spiritual contemplation that is dedicated to our dear animal friends. And even in the cases that it may not be beneficial for yourself, I do believe that it can be beneficial for others, and so therefore it's worth doing. I want to talk a little bit about Ridgeland, and I will start by saying that the Ridgeland action was taken on by approximately 2,000 activists who all came to Wisconsin with the singular goal to rescue beagles. And with that said, there was a lot of leadership that I personally disagree with. Not the actions that they took that day. I actually recognize that there may have been mistakes, but I think that they did the best that they could given the moment and information that they had right at that moment. But rather I speak of some of the leadership there has been harmful to women in our movement. And I want to recognize that that is something that is real and happens, and that I think it's worth acknowledging that if some folks felt unsafe to go to that action because of leadership, I recognize that, and I support you, and I am continuing my work to make these activist spaces safer for all beings. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that some folks some folks in leadership have caused harm, and I just want to acknowledge that, and let people know that I am aware of those things, and I'm actively working to solve those issues. But with that said, I still went to the action. I felt safe doing so, and I recognize that that is a privilege that I have as a male. That is a privilege I have as a young person. That is a privilege that I have as a person who can take on a little more risk because I have so much support here at the temple. And given that privilege, I use my privilege to go there and train folks to take action. I used my privilege to be there on the ground and help as many activists as I could with the full intention of rescuing beagles. That was why I went, and it was unfortunately unsuccessful. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Neil. What you saw that looked like tear gas was absolutely tear gas. Activists were tear gassed. Um, they were pepper sprayed and they were shot with rubber bullets. These things were all very real and was happening right in front of me. A lot of my dear, close, good friends were hurt that day by law enforcement simply for the act of trying to rescue beagles who were suffering, trying to rescue beagles from a place that had already been condemned for having over 300 violations of criminal felony animal abuse. It was no question to the authorities, no question to lawmakers, no question to anyone that animal abuse was happening there. Although I think Ridgeland continues to deny these things. The special prosecutor had found that and reached a plea agreement with Ridgeland. Courts have found that felony animal abuse is happening there, but did nothing to actually get these beagles free and away from that abuse. So we were left with no choice but to try to rescue these beagles. And please understand too that some of the comments have been going on about that there's better ways to do this kind of work. There's alternatives. Those alternatives have been tried and begged and worked on for the past decade at this facility. And all of the legislators, law enforcement, courts have all failed the beagles. And so we were left with no other choice but to attempt to rescue as many as we could. Tani asked if some of the beagles were saved. 22 beagles were saved in March, in the March action, so the action before the April action, so about a month before. About 100 activists went to Ridgeland and were successfully rescued 22 beagles, but still had 2,000 left at the facility, so approximately 2,000 activists descended on Ridgeland on April 18th and were unsuccessful at taking any of the beagles. The police department had fortified the entire location. They were inside the buildings, they were inside the fence line. Anybody who came close to the fence, they were shot with rubber bullets and pepper spray, and then they continued to lob tear gas into the crowds of people indiscriminately. So people who were far away, people who were peacefully, on the roadside, they had tear gas fired upon them. I'm trying to keep up with both of the chats here. The facility is agreed to no longer sell and breed beagles. However, they are going to continue experimenting on the beagles that they have there at Ridgeland. So they don't have any specific goals of closing it just yet. The Ridgeland is not agreed to close, but they have agreed to stop breeding, and they have agreed to stop selling beagles. So functionally will close the facility eventually. But that doesn't help any of the beagles that are still there. And so there are efforts. There are a lot of people putting a lot of pressure on Ridgeland to try to get those beagles out. And Activists on the ground in Wisconsin and all over the world are still working to free those specific 2,000 beagles and to continue raising awareness for animals tested on in laboratories across the world. And we hope that, this action brings attention to animals who are stuck in labs across the world, and try to bring awareness that this is just an unnecessary practice. And we are living in 2026 and have AI. And if we're going to use AI for anything, it should be, used to preserve life and to use it in ways that we don't have to no longer experiment on and torture our non-human animal friends. So we don't know what will happen to the beagles still there, but work is continuing to happen to try to free them. If anybody else has any other questions, I'd love to answer them. It was just a horrific sight. I saw, really brave activists who would try to run towards the tear gas canisters and bury them in the mud, extinguish them so that other activists didn't have to take the full brunt of the tear gas. Understanding that, when you get anywhere near these tear gas canisters, you're just getting the full force of it. And there's activists just sacrificing themselves in order to save other activists. I saw people being carried away, brought into medical to deal with tear gas and rubber bullet injuries. It was quite a horrific sight. We are still processing everything. I'm still processing everything that I saw. Seeing so many of my friends get hurt was really difficult to see. A long time activist, Jenny McQueen, who I've looked up for years and who I contribute some of my own bravery to go into these facilities, was because I saw the actions that Jenny McQueen took in Canada, and I saw her there at Ridgeland also get pepper sprayed, and that was really hard to see and really sad. Yes, Jackie, it was very extreme, very aggressive. All of us were there to non-violently take beagles. That was our goal. We did not want to interact with police. We did not, want to cause a problem with them. We were there just to help dogs who had already, the courts had already said were being abused. And, it was really, the police could have took those beagles out themselves, and we would have been happy to stand down and allow that to happen. If the police wanted to turn around and start taking beagles out themselves, we were happy to stand down and let that happen. The whole goal was just to help these beagles. Yeah. Jenny is phenomenal activist, Jenny McQueen, Jackie. I'm sure you are aware of her. I got to speak with her on the second day a little bit, and kind of share some of our experiences, and I got to share how much I looked up to her. She's a wonderful activist, and has herself supported the Animal Liberation Temple in the past. So I'm very grateful for Jenny McQueen. Well, there's not much else to say, but that we will continue working to try to save these beagles. We will continue working in DC and in other places to try to help our rats coexist with, with human beings. I think that's really important. Our, urban rat friends are, intertwined with our existence, and we should seek ways to live with them and not poison them and kill them. And I think that's a really important endeavor. I think we can live in a world where we coexist with our non-human animal friends, and we should always seek out ways that we can do that. I'm a big proponent of, I don't want to own a sanctuary where we have to rescue farmed animals, where we have to rescue animals from the pet trade, from factory farms. I want these places to not exist, and so therefore our sanctuary wouldn't have to exist. I look forward to a world where animals are truly free and we can coexist with them. I have dog companion friends because of the horrible things that we've done to dogs. I would love to live in a world where we didn't have domesticated dogs, domesticated chickens, domesticated ducks, domesticated pigeons. I would love to live in a world where we no longer have domesticated animals and they can just be wild and we coexist with them. And that is, my ultimate goal. And I think we can start to imagine that with our rat friends who already are coexisting with us. It's usually our failure to coexist with them. We will conclude today's services with the recitation of the Animal Liberation Prayer, as well as the dedication of merit, and then we'll have our credits reel. So please stay for all of that. Again, the services today, these prayers, the dedication of merit, and the Animal Liberation Prayer are dedicated to the dogs at Ridgeland, as well as our dear departed rat friends in DC. May all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends, who are subject to unbearable pain in labs throughout the world, be free of all suffering. May alternatives to animal experimentation, vivisection, and dissection be implemented immediately. May bodhicitta, the quality of compassion that leads to enlightenment, fill the hearts of those who imprison them. May all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends who suffer endless days, months, and years, locked in tiny cages unable to move, be filled with peace and calm. May all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends who are forcibly taken from their families, be reunited, and may all families be able to stay together. May the hearts of those who work in slaughterhouses, factory farms, and all industries that exploit our dear animal friends be filled with bodhicitta, so the very thought of harm is purified. May they never kill again, and may the slaughterhouse lines, factory farms, and all industries that exploit our dear animal friends become immediately empty. May no animal be afraid or depressed. May their bodies be free of injuries, disease, and illness. May the mutilation of their bodies be forever ceased. May those who need homes or have been driven from them find shelter, plentiful food, and water. May there be liberation for those tortured for fur, entertainment, or who are hunted. May those who believe that they are superior to our brother and sister animals develop perfect equanimity, and may they realize in their hearts that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature, the potential to be completely free of suffering, and that they are not ours to kill or exploit. May the billions of land and sea-dwelling sentient beings who are abused, exploited, and killed due to greed, hatred, and ignorance be free of suffering. May all the nets, hooks, blades, projectiles, traps, snares, cages, pens, tanks, lethal restraints, saddles, reins, prods, bait, and poison, and all instruments used to harm, exploit, and dominate our dear animal friends be forever abolished. May all human and non-human sentient beings live together in harmony, peace, equanimity, and achieve perfect enlightenment quickly. May we all experience happiness, safety, freedom, and animal liberation in this very lifetime. We now recite the dedication of merit, page 16 and 17. Throughout our many lives and until this moment, whatever virtue we have accomplished, including this aspiration for peace, and all that we will ever attain, this we offer for the benefit of all sentient beings, especially our dear animal friends. May suffering, exploitation, and unnecessary death be decreased for every being, while wisdom, bliss, and compassion increase in this and every future life. May we clearly and instantly perceive the plight of our dear animal friends with the urgency and seriousness they deserve, and our every action leads them to complete liberation. May we quickly attain enlightenment and work ceaselessly for liberation of all sentient beings. Thank all the wonderful people who have contributed to our dear animal residents at the Animal Liberation Temple from the 12th to the 25th of April. And thank you to everyone who's been liking, sharing, and commenting and subscribing to our social media. I'd like to thank our Venmo donors, Tani Salazar, Mina Collins, Cree Hudson, Vanessa Ka, and Whitney Denasha. Our PayPal donors, Joshua Markson, Colin Simmons, Cassandra King, and the Universal Compassion Buddhist Congregation. And of course, our Patreon supporters, Tier 1, Susan Fryman and Neil Carmen, Tier 2, Palomina Bradford, Paula Partenheimer, Shannon Hunter, and Tier 4, MV. Please consider donating through any of our platforms. You can be found at our Linktree Animal Liberation Temple. Remember, we are 501c3 and all the donations are tax deductible. Thank you all for joining our services for our dear animal friends, and everybody have a beautiful week. Thank you all so much. If anybody has specific questions for me, you can always reach out via our messenger apps on either Facebook or our emails. All that can be found at Linktree. And if you have any very specific questions about maybe some of our residents, you can reach out to me through Signal if you have that. That's the best way to do that. Everybody have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you everybody who have contributed to the Animal Liberation Temple. It's greatly appreciated at this time, as we are in a more desperate need with all the new residents here. Thank you.